2005, and I was watching TV5 Monde. I do prefer that to the BBC, by the way, but that's another matter. And there's a lot of trouble in France at the time, a lot of firing of, torching of cars in the banlieue of the major cities in France, and that had been going on for about 3 or 4 days. And then they did a presentation on Marseille, where many people would have thought that's where there would have been real trouble. There was hardly any trouble. And they switched, they showed a local man who did community relations. And they said to him straight, they said, well, why are there not problems here? And he said, well, he said, most of the people in these HLM, these blocks of flats, they meet each other on a regular basis. They may play table tennis, they may play football, they may just get out of their flats and meet each other and talk. But communication is a key thing. And the other thing is to give rather than always to take. That's what we see a lot of in sport these days. Taking, taking, taking all the time. And it's a pity that this giving didn't happen well before the recent international financial crisis. Or that even they didn't play within the rules, if indeed the rules had ever been written for that. But people don't acquire these priceless skills by reading about them, by downloading information off the internet, or watching sport live or on TV. You have to experience sport on the playing field, time and time again, experiencing the ups and downs, the winning and the losing. There are no quick fixes, but if the world is going to become a better place to live in, then it's not a quick fix we're looking for. Not something you can buy off the shelf, which will by that very process create profit for business. What we're looking for is profit for the people of the world. And we're better to lay the foundations for a better world than in schools. We're best to create awareness. Children don't harbour prejudice naturally. For them, someone else's perception, for example, of a disability, is just a form of ability, without the negative connotations that are often entrenched in adult society. The purest form of development through sport is found in the schools, just as sport is a pure form of education when taught and practiced properly, and it has to be taught and practiced properly. Learning about life through sport takes time. By emphasising the elements of fun, fair play, team success and communication, we teach the basics of peace. So sport for school children is vital. If you think of the defining moments in your lives, I doubt if many of them came straight off the page of a textbook. This is not to say that traditional learning is not important, but life experiences have to be given equal weight in educational programs. There's no better way to learn these than through practicing sport. All school children can benefit from these experiences, not only the 1% who may have Olympic or Paralympic aspirations. In fact, it's the remaining 99% who will benefit most. Some of these children will become the future movers and doers of society, and the skills they acquire will be crucial to the sustainable development of society. Sport teaches life skills. Sport belongs in the schools. Governments in all nations must be and are the prime force to ensure that all children without exception are exposed to sport. De Coubertin defined the fundamental role that sport could and should play in education. I hope I've been able to show so far how sport can be a benefit to everyone in the wide world. But I have to say that at the start of this new millennium, there is definitely confusion with regard to what sport is and what sport isn't. This year I've had 2 short holidays. The first was in France in June to get myself in some sort of physical shape for the Olympics, and particularly the Paralympics that were to come in China. In France in June, the TV was on while I was having breakfast, and I heard the words, "Le sport est-il inhumain?" Sport, is it inhuman? This caught my attention. And it was a review of a book, this book here, just published by a French sport philosopher, Robert Redeker. I immediately ordered a copy and started to dissect it. But Redeker's key premise is that in his youth, his footballing heroes, such as Platini and Dominic Rochko were sportsmen amongst thousands of others that had physical attributes which were not dissimilar from those of every man and woman on the street. In other words, the fan who dreamed of filling their heroes' boots on the pitch. But today, he says that things have changed markedly, and that commercialization and the need to have certain sports on TV every day and every night of the week have demanded the creation of superhumans that bear little or no physical resemblance to those same men and women on the street. He also states that despite being bought off by huge financial gain, these elite superhumans have lost their freedom and are in fact prisoners of an ever more sport-hungry media and entertainment industry. As I previously said, I recommend this book to anyone who wishes to understand the dangers that are threatening the meaning of the word sport today. But what I will say is that despite the headline-grabbing nature of the book's title, sport cannot be inhuman. If it is inhuman, then it's probably no longer sport. Now coming back to those holidays, my second short holiday was in Boston, USA. That's where I was recovering from the Paralympics. And I spied in my basketball mad friend's bookcase a book by Bill Bradley. As many of you will know, a great NBA basketball player. And his book was entitled Values of the Game. I just want to read to you something that Bill Bradley wrote in '98 in the first paragraph of his book. He said that in a world full of unrealized dreams and baffling entanglements, basketball seems pure. He then goes on and says, we know of course that it isn't. It has its own share of greed, violence and obsession with the culture of entertainment. Yet even in the midst of these distractions, there is still the game. Each time a father or mother takes his or her son or daughter to the playground to shoot baskets for the first time, a new world opens, one full of values that can shape a lifetime. He then goes on to say, winning was fun, but so was the struggle to improve. That was one of the lessons you learn in the game. Basketball is a clear example of virtue rewarding. I've mentioned these two books just to highlight how too much money can corrupt sport and create a new and dangerous surrogate that some people are still calling sport. However, if the values of sport are defended as the ultimate goal, then sport can still prosper, even in the 21st century. We're here at this conference to celebrate sport for all, and I firmly believe that sport as I have defined it, with its benefits, is one of the keys to a better world in the 21st century. Sport for all is sport, and is the central building block of all our futures in sport. Sport is one of the world's greatest educational resources, which I'm confident governments have and will recognise as a crucial part of a young person's formal and informal education and enjoyment. Sport is for all. Now, before I leave you, I'd just like to finish with a maxim that was written some 2,500 years ago. It's extremely relevant today, especially as we're still celebrating wonderful Olympic Games and incredible Paralympic Games in China. And it was written, I must apologize for my pronunciation here, but it was written by Su Xia, who was a disciple of Confucius. And he said, a man who treats his betters as betters, wears an air of respect, who in serving father and mother knows how to put his whole strength, who in the service of his prince will lay down his life, and who in intercourse with friends is true to his word. He then said, some may say of him that he still lacks education, but I, for my part, should certainly call him an educated man. Thank you very much.